Someone reviewed Pirate Software's code. Okay, it's 10 minutes. It's not that much. It's not that much. It's 10 minutes. We can do it. I can tell you my 2 cents. Some of you work in software as well. Anyone that is watching and doesn't understand anything that's going on, you can ask. You can ask. I'm not the only one that knows what the fuck is going on, so we can look at this. It could be fun. Let's look at it. Let's do it. All right. Let me give you some context before. There's this guy called Code Jesus. It's not called Code Jesus because he's God on earth in terms of programming. It's called Code Jesus because it looks like Jesus. He has long hair and he had a beard at some point, and people went like, "You look like Jesus. Maybe you should start going by Code Jesus." It's a fun name. It works. What it did, as far as I know, is self-taught in C++, which is fine. You don't need any pedigree to learn how to program. He looked at this is a guy that knows what he's talking about, and the reason I know that he knows what he's talking about is because we have experience in software development and just programming in general. So let's look at this.
What is up, guys? Coding Jesus here. Guys, today we will be doing a code review of a popular YouTuber and streamer by the name of Thor, or Pirate Software. Thor has been the talk of the town as of recently, as he's been an extremely large streamer that has come out against a pro-consumer movement in the gaming space called Stop Killing Games. Stop Killing Games is an initiative launched by a man named Ross Scott, who is an advocate for consumers in the video game space.
We talked about this extensively. I don't need to tell you again what Stop Killing Games, right? I don't know why you went against it. I'm not Pirate Software. I'm not fucking Jason. I don't know how his mind works. He started mischaracterizing the whole initiative, saying that this is requiring the companies to support the games forever. It is not. This is requiring the games to, let go of their IP. It is not. That's not the case. What about on MMOs? What about MMOs? They would need to convert the whole game into a single player experience at the end of it. They would not. That's not at all what we were asking. Because we need to have a discussion about digital products that don't function as other goods and services in markets work. It's egregious that you have license agreements without dates that say that you have zero rights, basically, especially in the EU. There's zero rights for the consumer. It's GG. And then all these big companies come out and say, "Oh, it's too costly. We're protecting the users." Come on. Like Sony is protecting they just got hacked and leaked a bunch of information, and they're making we can't protect users in... Anyway, there's a lot to be said about it. I put out a video about it. Go to YouTube if you want to look at each point. We discussed it all. You can give me your 2 cents in the comments as well. Why it would be bad, why it would be good. We looked at the whole thing, go there. But Thor looked at this thing and said, "Fuck this whole thing. This can eat my ass." It's just like that. This can eat my ass. And so single-handedly, because he has a large following, some people could argue that they put a chilling effect on the whole thing, because people would look at the content and say, "Oh, here's a guy, he's an authority in the subject. He worked at Blizzard for how many years? This guy is a game developer. He knows what he's saying. So he's opposing this movement. It must be bad." That's the sort of shit that pisses me off when you look at what he's been doing and it's evident that his expertise... Man, you don't need to be a super duper mega game developer 3000 to make entertaining content on this platform. You don't need to make that the hill where you die on. You don't need to convince the people of your grift. But let's watch, yeah.
Okay, now why am I picking on Thor here in particular? Well, Thor has not only what appears to be lied about his experience, or at the very minimum played it off as something that it's really not, but he's also misrepresented the initiative and has doubled and tripled down in that misrepresentation. Now, other creators have reviewed this drama to no end and have gone over his employment history and timeline, but what I want to do that I guess would make this video unique is go over his actual code from his developer live streams and analyze whether this guy has the skills that he claims he has as a 20-year veteran and game developer working for Blizzard and other game publishers, etc.
My name is Jason Thor Hall, also known as Pirate Software Online. I've been in the gaming industry for about 20 years. I used to work at Blizzard Entertainment, then Amazon Game Studios, and now I own my own studio, Pirate Software, by the same name, which is an indie studio, and I've been here for about 8 years now.
Now, why should you guys listen to me about any of this? Well, I'm a C++ developer with 5 years of experience in the quantitative trading space. I've read dozens of books on C++ and over half a dozen books just on C++ design, from influencers in the space to professors to people that also have YouTube channels to time-tested and trusted books. I've read a lot, and while I'm not an authority in C++, I'm pretty likely to be somebody that can suss out a bad practice if
Let me give you a context as well on why any of my analysis might be relevant here. This guy learned how to program by himself, by reading, by making stuff. This is all very good. And he has experience in not just that programming language, but in programming in general. I taught this shit at university. Not just high-level programming stuff, like in Python and C. Arguably, some people would say that C is not a high-level language. It is, okay? It is. But I also taught low-level shit, like assembly, to teach people how the computers work, right? And I think it's important as well. But the point being that I taught these sort of subjects from the most basic low-level programming to the most high-level and algorithmic data structure kind of situation. So I actually taught courses on all the levels of programming in different languages.
I also have a bunch of open source contributions in C++ on projects that I find interesting, like Monero. Now, when I was making notes for this video, because I like to come prepared, I thought I'd need to go through dozens of different developer streams. But what I found out really quickly is that I can only find 2 developers.
But no, I don't work at Blizzard and I don't make video games. I had to make 1 or 2 for like classes way back then, a long time ago. We had to do a whole, we had a whole class on computer graphics and, you know, graphics APIs and what makes like a game engine, etc. But I never worked at Blizzard, so it's all my opinions are invalidated. And my dad doesn't work at Blizzard either, so I guess it's double invalidated. He also works in industrial machines, like, you know, excavators and shit. So I guess triple invalidated? Not even the same field. Unbelievable, right? Don't forget to unfollow and unsubscribe.
That Thor actually brings up code on the screen in, and in those developer streams, he does not actually do any coding. The code is just visually there on the screen, and 98% of the actual stream is him looking at his subscribers, looking at his tip jar as to how much money people have sent him, and also looking at videos about games, but never actually doing any game development in a dev stream. Without further ado,
I never watched him develop anything. He keeps doing game development and software development category on Twitch. So I don't know what to make of it. There's code on the screen. I don't know.
Let's actually take a look at some of his code. Alright, so I'm going to be linking these VODs in the description box below. I recommend people actually download these VODs before he takes them down, because honestly, if I was claiming I'm a game developer with 20 years of experience, this would be embarrassing to have online. Let's take a look at what's really wrong about this, and I don't even need to be a game dev to understand that. When you look at the code here, what do you see? You see a lot of magic numbers. That's an industry term for numbers that don't have any description or explanation as to what they are or why they exist. And you also have a lot of true or false, which is not descriptive at all.
Listen, when you start a project, an argument could be made. When you start a project and you want to move quickly, sometimes you just slap some things that work, and then you go back, but here's the thing, and you leave it. If it works, good, continue doing it. But here's the thing, usually you want to get to the working part, but then you go back, and you refactor some of that shit. Why? What is refactoring, by the way? It's just making the code different, structuring it differently so that it becomes easier to work on, to extend, to add new things. and to look at the code. If you ever want other people to work on it, you can just turn over your code and people can look at it and immediately understand what's going on. You know, sometimes you want to go back and restructure it. If you don't do that, it's called technical debt, right? It is. You accrue what we call technical debt. What is technical debt? Well, you're paying a price, you just don't see it yet, right? You're paying a price in how you structure things, and you're making it harder for you in the future to do anything with this code. Because then it becomes, I don't know if you all are familiar with the expression spaghetti code as well.
Somebody touch my spaghetti!
Code becomes spaghetti code when it just connects to all kinds of places between, you have all kinds of functions connecting to all kinds of other functions and connected in complex ways where it becomes such a shit show. It's like spaghetti when it mixes, right? You can't disentangle it easily. When you make that sort of stuff, you're gonna pay the price in the future. Unless it's like a one-off thing and it works and you just leave it and it's fine. But if it's a continuously developed thing, usually go back and fix it. I would argue that if you have any sort of experience, sometimes we have the tendency to overdo it. I'm not just talking about premature optimization. I'm talking about, refactoring over and over again just to be, prettier and to make more sense. In my experience, developers of all kinds have the tendency to overdo this sometimes and to just, massage the code a bit too much, where instead of making it work, your project is just starting and you want to get something running. It's fine. This is fine in the beginning, but not in how many years has it been doing this? It's like you look at this and it's completely incomprehensible. You have like a function, part type sprite that has like some sort of effect that has some false true. I don't even know what this means. There's a bunch of numbers. I don't know what these, maybe there's the documentation for this. I don't know, but out of the top of my head, I cannot look at this and say what's going on over here.
When you look at any function call as another developer, you should understand what's going on without needing to.
It's not faster, but sometimes you copy paste stuff and it just stays, And you can, instead of having configurations, you just slap a bunch of code there and it acts as configurations or initialization. And it's a shit show. It doesn't matter. It's a shit show. It's very hard to maintain in the future, but it's something that sometimes you just slap it there and it's fine. It works. Don't mess with it. But it's been working on this for a while now. That's my point. So you would go back and fix it. You wouldn't leave it like this.
Read through the implementation of the actual method itself. So part type sprite, part type size, I don't need to read through that to understand what's being passed to it and what it's doing. But that's not what's going on here. I shouldn't need to ask myself, what is this number 1? What is the 0? What does it
15.
signify?
You look at Pirate Software's code and you go like, what the fuck is going on? And some people look at it and they think, this is what pisses me off. People look at it and they think, oh, I'm not there yet. I'm not at this level, so I don't understand because I'm a big dum-dum. That's not the case at all. You don't understand it because it's impossible to understand. You can program in any language you want. At the end of the day, if you understand how to program the paradigm, you understand all languages. All you need is like documentation and a bit of a refresher, and off you go doing a project in a certain language. Of course, you'll learn the idiosyncrasies of certain languages over time, and the ecosystem, what people already done, the libraries you have available and whatnot, but that's not the case here. But if you understand imperative programming languages, you understand any imperative programming languages, right? Like C, like Java, like Python, like it doesn't matter. If you understand functional programming languages, you understand all functional programming languages. The principles. At least the fact that you don't have side effects, you don't have Pirate Software says this is bullshit because it doesn't know the language he's using. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If you know how to program, you can look at any code, and you can kind of, if it's good code, you can kind of guess what's going on. Okay, there's concepts here, but like a variable is usually a position in the memory of the computer, right? It's like a space where you store stuff. Usually, programming languages have a way to tell the computer how much space do you need in memory to store different things. Like certain numbers need more space or less space than a character, or a string, which is a sequence of characters, and there's different ways to store them in memory. But like when you're representing stuff, values that are moving around, you usually use the memory for it, right? And typing is a way to tell the computer how much space do you need for each variable, depending on the type. Is it a number? Is it an integer? Is it like a character? And you can say that, okay, this is a character, or this is a number, this is a string, you can tell that. A more advanced version of that, when you get into typing, is you can construct complex types that sometimes have, subtypes. In this case, for instance, he has constructed types for horsepower, which is, a special instance of an integer, right? Or door number, special instance of an integer. Types of transmissions. You can do like, there's two types of transmissions. There's either automatic or there's, you can do enumerations of those types. Typing is so the stupid human programmer doesn't put square thing into round hole. Exactly. Wait, that's static typing? Yeah, but like, you can still do types in dynamic type languages. For instance, Python. It's a way for the interpreter to know what kind of things to expect. So it throws an error and saying, you can't put round thing into triangle hole. Do you know what I mean? You can't put triangle into square. This conversation is making you horny. Well, but it is what it is. Basically, types are a way to say what kind of data are you passing around, so that when you run your program, if you made a mistake, the compiler or the interpreter, depending on the type of language you're using, will tell you if you made a mistake.
What we can do in that case is define an alias at the bare minimum, or a class, and we can call it horsepower. And then we can create an enumeration for things like transmission or fuel. And then we'd alter the car's constructor and pass in that information: horsepower 98, door number 4, transmission.
Yeah, it's assuming we're doing like object-oriented situations or structs to represent an object with multiple things, with enumerations and whatnot. But this is clear. If you want to represent a car, this would be clear. But if you had just a make car and 98 for true false, you'd be like, what the fuck is this? You don't know what the fuck is going on. You can't read it. Sometimes, it's got to be said, sometimes making your code pretty and easy to read, it's counterproductive. But most of the times, that's what you want. Do you understand what 98 for false is here? But when you look, you don't. You have no way. It's a car with 98. 98 what? Potatoes? Fucking what? And 4 what? Bitches inside? What are we talking about? And you kind of have a better idea of what's going on. Doesn't mean this is the best way to do it either. Bitches is your favorite type of data? Yeah.
Than whatever Thor has here. Another really good example of that is at 2556. So if we jump there, okay, right here. Alarm 0, alarm 1, alarm 2. What is that? What are those alarms? Is it an alarm for a person?
But I love like the comments he has are even more cryptic than the fucking than the programming. Stop making objects. What objects? Stop path movement? Stop moving tiles? What the fuck does that mean? It has comments for everything and they make even less sense. That Python, it's not. This is not Python. This is a game maker script or something.
An alarm for whatever character, an alarm to do what?
I believe that this alarm is some sort of an array where it stores alarms that get triggered by events like your character touching something, or your object touching something on the left side or on the right side or in the front or in the back, stuff like that. So I believe that these are alarms for events, for things that happen, and they get triggered. And so seemingly alarm 0 would have a 1, for instance. I wouldn't put it in an array that is completely non-descriptive, because like supposedly alarm 0 is like left, alarm 1 is right or something. Like, I don't know that. How the fuck do you... It's not pre-watched because I saw another video about this where Jason Yar Software was saying what these things are. But from someone from the outside, you don't know what the fuck these things are, right?
It's unexpressed.
It's just an array. It's an array. Not only that, but why are you initializing the array to 0 every single position? It's like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why not just put a loop here and say, you know, get another way to initialize this? Why do you need to do it manually, copy pasting everything in here? It makes no sense.
Really spaghetti code, in my opinion. Okay, let's go to around 1 hour.
But again, I'm gonna say it again, if this was the beginning of the project and you just wanted to make something work, this would be fine. Sometimes you don't start with a design document. You don't know what the structure of your code will be. So you just slap things around. And once you understand what you need, you go back and you fix it and you restructure it so it makes more sense. Because now with the added experience of the thing working, you know exactly what you need to make that pretty and to make that understandable. Clearly, this is not the case, right? It's just stayed like this, whatever this is.
And 4 minutes. This is also a complete mess for a couple of reasons. First of all, Thor is using the incorrect data types. This isn't even getting to some sort of advanced design or design pattern. It's showing a complete lack of understanding how to represent information in a program. Okay? What do I mean by that?
Not just that. Look, you have an if statement. If statements are just a way to decide based on the condition that you evaluate, if it's true or false, if you execute something. So if this is true, then you do whatever it's inside. Basically, that's it. When you have true or false, and if question true is a Boolean, if question true is a true or false, you know, this is like, not even my first year students, first semester would make this mistake. Or I would just make sure that this does not happen. If this is a true or false, and even if Booleans were interpreted as zeros and ones, which in some cases, in some languages, any positive number is true, any zero or negative number is false. Sometimes it's interpreted like that. But even if that was the case, if question true contained a 1 and question asked contained the 0, you wouldn't need the comparison, because you're just asking if 1 equals 1 and if 0 equals 0. It would be the same as asking if question true and not question asked, for instance. There's no not in Game Maker. I'm gonna check it. I'm sorry, I have to check it. Game Maker script logical operators. Assignment, combining, expressions. There's a not. There's a not true. So not true equals false. So it could have just said if question true and not question asked. Do you know what I mean? Per the documentation. I don't know Game Maker script. I just went to the documentation and I looked at it. Like anyone would do. What the hell?
Well, look at question asked equals 0. Question asked...
So it says that this is the wrong data type. I wouldn't even put a true there. I wouldn't put anything.
In my opinion, is true or false. Has this question been asked? It should be a Boolean data type. What does 0 mean? Booleans are represented as integers under the hood. So in C++, anything that isn't 0 is true. So 1 is true.
See?
But
that's not guaranteed in all languages, by the way, and that might change in some languages. That's usually the case, and sometimes you can use it as like a trick to make the code more readable, but that's not always the case. For instance, in some languages in Python, an empty list will return false. So you can check empty by checking just, if you have a certain list or an array, you can just say if array, then you know that's something in there because you know it returns false if it's empty, that sort of thing. But like, you shouldn't, this is still
even
terrible.
Give another developer the option to write question asked equals 42. In theory, that should be true, because anything other than 0 is true, but why even allow somebody to write code that can potentially be that confusing? It's just a no-go. Code should be self-documenting, but there is a 1 to 5% case rate in which you should be writing comments only if your code is extremely complex. And that's not the case here. This is a simple if statement and a simple switch statement. You don't need to add comments here. Having a comment for we have asked the question and question asks equals 1 is totally superfluous, a waste of time, a waste of space. I'm not sure why it was added.
All of this analysis misses the point. None of this is meant to be real code. It's just supposed to look like pretty code. It's not programming, it's set design. You think it did it on purpose? Now, the reason, hear me out, people can't tell the difference. So you must, I know what you're saying. It's like, why are you analyzing something that was clearly made to be, you know, making look like Mr. Hackerman 3000? There's nothing to analyze there. There's no point. But the point is, he doesn't know what he's doing. And that's fine. That doesn't mean people should be threatening him and stuff like that. That's crazy. But he clearly does not have a good grasp of programming in general. To a non-programmer, it looks like code. Yep. But I think if you don't make a legit analysis of it, even if it sounds like actually is not using the correct data type here, you should be using a boolean, and people looking at this would go like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? This sounds like a Redditor going, actually is not using the correct structure with the data types, strong data, you know, even if it sounds like that. How are you supposed to do it? Because if you say, oh, look at this code, this is shit code, he doesn't know what he's doing, people go like, oh, you're just talking out of your ass. I'm legit asking, what would you guys think it's a decent response? But like, by the way, Jason, Thor, Yar Software, turned around and said many things like, oh, this guy just doesn't know anything about, he's criticizing my code, but he never used Game Maker script, which is, again, bullshit argument. Oh, he's just trying to sell his consultations to people. This guy, his name is Code Jesus. No, we're just calling out bullshit. That's what we're doing. And I think it's warranted. Come on. You could say at any point, I'm not very good at this, but you know, this code is shit, but it works. It works. I don't want to touch it now because it is what it is. But no, you must say 50 times that you worked at Blizzard, you have 20 years of game development experience or whatnot. You don't need to say that to you don't need this performative layer to spread a message to people that they could be pursuing game development. Go try it. You can do many things even if you're not good at it. Hell, you can even become a Twitch grifter if you're not good at anything.
Subscription count. I don't know why he gets so horny looking at this. Watching video games, etc. You guys get the point. Storyline array number. Oh my god. Here he appears to be storing a timeline of events in a flat one-dimensional array with random numbers as the indices in order to represent said event. So literally anything would be an upgrade over what is written here.
It's like, what the fuck is storyline? Storyline array is what? It has like all the scenes? But what do the scenes have stored? The scenes have numbers that represent each specific. Oh my god, no.
But what he could have done is created a nested structure where all those default values, instead of being hard-coded and written in some file.
That's what I mean by I don't like the way they put certain things. Because yes, Code Jesus here goes too much into let's make a detailed analysis of the code, where as you put it, and very well, the point is that this is clearly shit code. So it doesn't need to be actually, you know, and this is not, he should have used the structured array because that's how it sounds. Yet is right. And I don't know other way to convince people that Thor is full of shit, honestly. Because I've seen people's reactions to the Code Jesus review, and at the end of it, they just go, I don't know anything about programming to know if Code Jesus is bullshitting or not. It's hard to point out that Emperor has no clothes. Exactly. That's exactly... what do we do? But I think it's warranted, though. I think we should point that the Emperor has no clothes. And it's not that we wish upon the Emperor, it's that we think that he shouldn't be the Emperor.
Can simply be stored in a YAML or configuration file that can be edited outside of the build as to not waste time rebuilding the entire application.
When you go too detailed, you almost undersell how bullshit it is. That's my only complaint about how Code Jesus goes about this. But at the same time, I wouldn't have other way to tell people.
That's Development 101. You learn it in the first week of your new job as either an intern or a junior developer.
Yeah, for instance, when it says you could have used an XML file or a YAML file, people that don't understand what he's saying will go like, this will sound like, actually, he could have used a YAML file or an XML configuration file. And the point he's making is that there's ways where you could just make a configuration that would make this way cleaner than what it is. Because what the fuck does 419 mean? Yeah, you know, do you know? Well, Thor knows. It's the only developer in the game, so you could make the argument that, well, it works, so who cares? But the point he's making is that these are the kind of decisions that will come back around and bite you in the ass. It should instead be saying, this is the most idiotic way to do this. Was he drinking? Pirate Software doubles down on this and attacks other people instead of recognizing that, well, this is shit. I made this a long time ago, I don't want to touch it. And now it's too much work to touch it. Which is not, but... He could have said that. But this is only funny because it keeps living in a matrix, you know?
119 means. So somewhere in his code, he needs to actually add a comment or something to represent what 419 means. As you can see here, I found the file that contains all these events, which are the association between a magic number and some state. It's very obvious that this can get very unwieldy extremely quickly. As you can see here, he has some number associated with 0.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh, what the fuck? So he has a giant array, which is he put. What if you make mistakes here, right? He wrote down all the indexes of this thing, and then he has in comments. Again, this is fine if it's the first thing you did, but then he would go back and fix it, because he has in comments the documentation of the states in which each storyline position can be. Like, it's the closet, enter void, 01, no, whatever this means. Cafe talk to Whistler about, you know, it has all of this. This is in... Yeah, all the important data is stored in comment form. But...
1 or even 2, and then he needs to detail in a comment what that means. Now, imagine a developer accidentally puts 2 here or 3. Finding, tracking, and solving that bug is really going to be a development nightmare. What if you forget to type 3 here and accidentally type 2 and start associating coffee cold knowledge?
You'll never know. You'll need to go back to that scene, and then you don't know that the scene is associated with the same kind of states, and then you're verifying the wrong kind of states for different things. This is a nightmare. This is a fucking nightmare.
With floor 2 coffee age. Or even worse, in your code somewhere, instead of typing 213, you type 214, and now need to go back and track why your game is misbehaving. This is extremely poor practice and can get very messy very quickly. Not only that, but this is going to significantly decrease the velocity of your development.
I'm gonna end it there for this video. You get the point. The point is, it's terrible code. He could just have said, guys, I'm not very good at this, but listen, it's even a stronger argument for the case, because he could say, I'm not very good at this, but look, even if I'm not very good at this, I made a game work. Right? Hello? Did you like the video? If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, press the... If you have the bell, press the bell. Otherwise, you know, you don't get the juicy stuff next time. Is this how you do it? What do you mean, no? Oh, also, love your face. Bye. Bye. Click the things.